The UN last week announced that it may deploy Monusco forces from the DRC to Burundi. Burundi has been put on notice by the UN Security Council to reject violence and return to international-led mediation efforts. The East African nation descended into violence after President Pierre Nkurunziza launched a controversial bid in April to prolong his term in office. Izak Khomo, a producer from Channel Africa, joins us now to discuss the issue about the deployment of Monusco forces and a lot more as well. Always good to see you, Izak. Welcome to Morning Live.
Thank you for inviting me.
Pleasure. Now, the DRC has also been affected by the violence. What would that mean for the country if Monusco forces are actually deployed to Burundi?
Well, the Monusco forces basically is about a 20,000 strong force in the DRC. And I think with the situation of the UN, it being cash-strapped, I think the best option is actually to hive off about 5,000 or 10,000 fighters and taking them to Burundi. As you can see now that fighting in the eastern part of DRC, it is actually toned down with the defeat of the M23. So that will be a very good, I would say, a cost-effective move by the UN.
Yeah. I mean, there have been a lot of mentions and speculation about genocide in Burundi. What do you know about this?
In fact, Burundi and Rwanda, they've always had a genocidal history. That's the thing that people should actually understand from the late 50s. And with Burundi, they had serious genocides in the 60s. And funny enough, it was Hutus were being killed, and it was a Tutsi military government. And the last fighting that took place, which ended in 2004, 2005, it's actually the fighting was also genocidal. That's principally due to the fact that political antagonisms in Rwanda and Burundi have been tribal or ethnic. Yeah. So right now, there's a danger that ethnic violence would actually blow up in Burundi simply because the man in power, Nkurunziza, with the CNDD-FDD party, it's basically a Hutu-backed party. And the opposition is strongly Tutsi. Although that we do get elements, the situation now is actually getting to be much more mixed, whereby there's some element of inter-ethnic affiliations within the parties.
Okay. In the DRC itself, though, there really are big and major protests against Joseph Kabila. I mean, he's really trying to hang on to power at all costs right now. Will the redeployment of Monusco forces see a bloody clash with the civilians and government at this point? No,
I don't think so. If you look at the protests which are coming up now, mostly around the Kinshasa area, these are protests against the third-term bid by Kabila. He has not actually changed the constitution. He has actually called for a dialogue. Yeah, but the opposition has come up in arms. The media has come up in arms. So basically, it will not actually blow up to be an armed conflict. The fighting that's taking place in the DRC, it's in Eastern DRC.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
indeed.
that's where. Yeah. So that's where.
Well, I mean that comes with its own issues as well, because I mean the fact that it's in the eastern, bordering with Burundi, could we actually see the rebel group M23 becoming involved in all of this?
In fact, the sad thing is this, that the issues of Eastern DRC has not been solved. Okay, the M23 has been neutralized, but then you find that the opposition in Burundi, it's actually got the support, a tacit support of some neighboring countries. Yeah, you find that the army mutinied. They tried to have they did have a mutiny which was put down. And from there, they will find that there have been desertion from the army. And people are actually saying they're going to Rwanda. And there are allegations that Rwanda is actually putting together a Burundi rebel movement. There was Tutsi officer in charge of military intelligence. He disappeared with a lot of documentation and equipment to Rwanda. So right now you find that there's also killings of security forces, government officials by unknown armed men who the Nkurunziza claims that they come from, they've been trained in Rwanda. So there is a danger that the problems in Burundi will blow up and actually draw in the neighboring countries. Yeah. That's a reality.
I want to turn our attention a little bit away from what's happening here on the continent to what happened in Paris on Friday night. I mean, it's a major issue. It really, really is. What is your view on all of this? And I mean, ISIS taking responsibility for this, for what happened in Beirut as well. We're not immune to this either.
No, you're not immune. It's frightening. Terrorism, international terrorism is becoming a reality, and it just does not affect one group of countries or one region. It is worldwide.
Yeah.
Now, but the frightening thing about the Paris attack is this, that you find that there are ISIS cells which have already been established. And if you look at the coming, look at the situation in light of the coming COP meeting, which is going to take place, that's a global warming meeting, is going to take place in Paris in sometime next month. I mean, that actually sort of casts a very dark shadow on that meeting. Yeah. And also it will be a security nightmare for the French authorities, and also for countries who are going to be in attendance. Yeah. You should be remembered that heads of states will actually be there.
I mean, this is seen as possibly the most important gathering when it comes to what's happening with global warming. And this particular meeting is the meeting that has been identified where most and the biggest decisions are going to be taking place right now. So, I mean, has there been any word? Has this even been spoken about as yet?
Well, that has been spoken much about it.
Sure.
Yeah. In fact, you're right. It's going to be the biggest meeting, because what is the resolutions or the things that are going to be adopted there, they're actually going to be implemented for the next 20, 30, 40 years.
Indeed.
Yeah. So basically, it will affect government regulations and also the way government carry out the business. And nothing much has been said, but as far as we are concerned, I mean, we not heard much about the African stance. What are the Africans going to say in that meeting? Yeah. Yeah. But when it comes to if you juxtapose it to the terrorist issue, it's really very, very frightening.
It really is. I mean, we saw comments coming from our president, Jacob Zuma, just saying he condemns all of these attacks. But one thing he did say was that we shouldn't label all migrants now, because I think the migration issue in Europe is now going to come under the spotlight even more.
It has come on the spotlight, and it has given a lot of ammunition to the right-wing movements, the anti-immigration movements. And that itself now, it's also another anomaly, because we just had the Malta talks, which actually finished, and people are talking around the immigration issue. But now the sad thing is this, that right-wing groups in Europe, they're really going to come up, and they've been given the ammunition. So we should just have our fingers crossed that...
Izak Khomo, it's always a pleasure talking to you. Thank you very, very much. Izak is a producer from Channel Africa, talking to us about, firstly, what's happening in the DRC and Burundi, but also these attacks in Paris, France, and the ricochet effect around the rest of the world. As you've seen in our news, there's already been a lot of activity over the weekend from France's perspective. All right, let's now just take a look at an interview